What is up, everybody? Welcome into Week 6 Prop Talk. Took Week 5 off. I let Tom spend some time with his wife. It was Mr. and Mrs. Infidel's 10th wedding anniversary. So I gave him the night off. I said, you know what? Go ahead. All this money you've been making, I guess you can spend it on your wife. Not too much, though, because we need to come back, lay some bets down for the people, and lead them to the money. Let's jump right into it, man. Tom, you're going to lead us off because you're on the hot streak. Who do you have for your first prop you want to talk about for Week 6?
All right, so we are going with some Mark Andrews action against my Philadelphia Eagles because they have been horrible against the tight end position. His over's 47.5 receiving yards. I like him to score a touchdown also. That's a plus 120. And you know what? Screw it. 12.5 fantasy points. He's getting all three of them. I've had a couple of these guys. A-Rob, when I said this, he hit in all three. J-Rob, when he said it, he hit with all three. Mark Andrews doesn't, have, a Rob for a last name, but it's still a first name is a last name, so he's going to hit. You know what I mean? So he's had over 50 in 3 out of his 5 games. That's encouraging. It's not like otherworldly or anything. But you know what? The Eagles' defense is just shit. And it's really sad as an Eagles fan. And you know what? I don't think Will Parks is going to fix that issue. He's coming back this week. So, I don't know. Cody, he was on your team with the Steelers, so you know all about Will Parks. I don't think he's going to do it. But just to give you some numbers, they've given up 5 touchdowns to tight ends. Kittle went ballistic, 15, 183, and 1 against him. Higbee had 3 touchdowns. Logan Thomas got in on the action in Week 1. Ebron probably would have had 6 touchdowns if Claypool didn't absolutely slay Darius Slay last week. So you know what? Give me Andrews on everything. I have a lot of money tied up in that. Cody and I were talking about that earlier. And one other thing, DraftKings has a promo coming on. It's this week. You get 5 20% boosts for parlays. So you can do a 2-team parlay. You can do 2 props, as long as they're not in the same game. So you could do Mark Andrews and whoever the hell else you want to do to get their receiving yards and do a prop. So Andrews right now, I think I got him at minus 131. He's popped up to minus 150. So Vegas is on the side of, you know what, he possibly could go off. The receiving yards are probably too low. So if you don't like those odds, hit the fantasy points up, hit the touchdown up. That's a plus 120. I love them.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that I was looking at earlier, and then you hit me up, and you're like, you know what? I really like Andrews tonight. I was like, well, I guess I won't be talking about Andrews, but I am going to be talking about Myles Gaskin for my first one. Over 57.5 rushing yards. He's actually only hit this once, although he did have 57 last week. But it is full-blown 2020 when the Dolphins are 8-point favorites at home. And this line has actually moved. The money is coming in. This line has moved to 9.5 or even 10 in some spots. So they're home favorites. Gaskin is getting basically all the work. Jordan Howard was a scratch last week, so Myles Gaskin even got he got some goal line touches and he punched one in. But the Jets are giving up the 8th most rushing yards in the NFL, and they've given up that 57.5 mark to at least one running back every week except Week 1. 8 to 10 point home favorites. There might be some wind involved. We had some guys hitting us up on the Wednesday show asking about Ryan Fitzpatrick as a streamer this week and talking about, I guess there's supposed to be like a bunch of wind on Sunday's game. So have some elements. You got the big home favorites. It's the Dolphins. It's the Jets. What could possibly go wrong? There's no way this doesn't hit, right?
Listen, the Jets couldn't even get COVID right. They're like, no, it's a false positive. We just wanted to send you away for a day. I mean, that's where they're at. I don't even want to talk about the Jets. Let's move on.
Yes, hit us with your second one.
All right, so second one, I'm going back to the well because the well, it is not dry. Allen Robinson, over 74.5 receiving yards. Number 1 wide receivers against Carolina. You had Calvin Ridley, 136 yards, Keenan 132, Evans 104. The only one who didn't actually go off, who was a true number 1 wide receiver, was Hopkins, 7 for 41. You know what? That's 3 out of 4 studs, and A-Rob's going to make it 4 out of 5. I don't know what else to say. You've heard me talk about A-Rob at length. I can't just sit here and talk 10 minutes about A-Rob because I'd just be telling you stuff you already know from me. So A-Rob this week, 74.5 receiving yards. Let's get it done, baby.
And the thing with that, too, is I think that was a week that Hopkins went in questionable, I believe. So, and I think that was also the week that Kyler had like 130 passing yards, but still had like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think he had a bunch of rushing yards as well.
But the second one I'm going to bring to the table is Joe Mixon. I'm going to hit the over on 23.5 receiving yards. The Bengals are, I think, 7.5-point dogs on the road to the Colts. Now, the Colts have actually had one of the better defenses so far up to this point going into week 6, but they haven't really played a big time offense. But the thing that I like here, again, that line is relatively low at 23.5. And if you look at the routes run between him and Gio, like the first 2 weeks, they were kind of close, they were kind of splitting it. And then Zach Taylor was like, "Oh yeah, holy shit. We paid this guy a bunch of money. He's a fucking stud. We should probably use him in the passing game." And it doesn't really make sense why you're not using him in the passing game because that's a strength. I digress. But back to the routes run over the past 2 weeks, the tally between the two is Mixon has 42 routes run and Gio is down at 14. So Mixon is getting all the rushing attempts. He's getting all the receiving work now. Mixon has hit at least 30 receiving yards the past 2 weeks, and he also has 14 targets. So on the road, they're dogs. Darius Leonard looks like he's going to be out, so that is a big absence for the Colts defense. That he's a stud. So I like the Mixon over 23.5 receiving yards. Tom, who you got at number 3 for your props?
It's really weird what happens when you start giving, your best players the ball any way you can get it. I'm going to stick with that game. I'm going to go on the other side of the ball. You know what? You talked about 7.5-point dogs for Cincy, and guess what? 7.5-point favorites for Indy. And what are they going to do? They're going to run the ball. It is JT week, baby. Finally, it's here. Cincy's allowed four running backs to go over 82.5 yards. Eckler, Chubb, Hunt, and Sanders. J-Rob almost got there with 75. This week is going to be the week we finally see JT pop a big runoff in that dome. It's going to happen. I'm stoked about it. I'm willing it into existence. JT gave me like one of my only losses early on in the season. I believe that was our first week we were doing it. You know what? He owes me. I know 82.5 seems a little bit high. It's high for a reason. He's going to go over 100 yards. His fantasy points set at 17.5 points, so they know he's going to actually run the ball well. Frank Reich, get your head out of your ass. Give the man the ball, 25 touches. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, I think I saw Wilkins is questionable going into this game, and the Bengals are giving up the second most yards to running backs on the ground. So
it's not good. It's not good.
So my third one for this week, I'm going all running backs. I'm going for the three-peat at the RB position. I am taking David Montgomery over 65.5 rushing yards. Like Myles Gaskin, who I talked about with my first prop, he has also only hit this line once. That was back in week 2, but week 1 he did have 64 rushing yards. The last 2 weeks, he has only had 30 yards rushing in both games. I think both games he had 10 rush attempts for like 30 yards in both games, but that was against Tampa and Indy, who both have really good run defenses, and that is not the case with Carolina. The Panthers are giving up the 6th most rushing yards to running backs. They are 29th in Football Outsiders rush DVOA, and they are 32nd in PFF's rush defense grade. So definitely a much easier matchup than he's had the past 2 weeks. The spread on this game is only 1.5, I believe, currently, so it's not going to get out of hand. This shouldn't be a game where Chicago is playing from behind. So I do think that Monty can get the over 65.5 rushing yards this week.
I'm gonna take the under just because you've been so bad. No, I'm just kidding. I kind of like
it's probably the smart play. Anytime we do this video, whatever I say, just do the opposite.
Next week, my 3 bets are going to be whatever you say, just the opposite. Yeah, no, if Monty's going to get some chunk yardage, this has got to be
He
the
should.
game. This really does have to be the game that he winds up maybe not getting touched in the backfield 2 yards behind the center. I don't know. That's an interesting concept that would happen,
It might help.
It would really. I have a bonus for everybody. We're talking Sunday Night Football, baby. Are you ready?
Boop, 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 boop. Well,
all right.
I don't know what.
I don't know either, but
that was actually Morse code for bonus.
Morse code for bonus.
Yeah.
So Morse code for Cam Akers over 29.5 rushing yards. Okay. So he looked good last week. He had 61 on 9 carries. Granted, one of them was long. It was a 46-yard run. But guess what? His over is only 29.5, so he's only has to pop one off. McVay said he was going to get him more involved. This week, we always believe coaches no matter what they say, right? So obviously Sean McVay is a man of his word. He's going to give us more Cam Akers. He better. I'm a big Cam Akers guy, so let's go. He did look good last week, though. He looked, really strong, getting in and out of his cuts, explosive. So you know what? After I win you a bunch of money on those early games, why don't you just go ahead, load up on Cam Akers, and put a bow on it.
Anyway, guys, that is going to wrap it up for the Week 6 Prop Talk. You can always find our stuff on Twitter. You can find Tom on Twitter at Dynasty Infidel. You can find me at CKutzerFF. You can find all of the Fantasy Authority stuff at FF_authority. If there is ever a week like last week where we ever don't get to make the video for whatever reason, always check Twitter. Tom will always put stuff out in the morning. Fantasy Authority will always retweet it. So make sure you're following over there. And then I think I just need to stay silent. And that's the only way that I'm – or maybe I put these out and then I do the opposite.
Oh, wow. You win some money. But other things –
But then everyone will also know to take the opposite.
Right. So, I mean, you're like the cooler, pretty much. You're Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse.
I wish I could agree. I don't get the reference. Is that a good thing?
Stop it. Oh, God, I forgot you're like 16 years old. All right. Well, I'm sure a bunch of the degenerates that are listening will now shame you to death because you've never watched Roadhouse. As soon as you're done, you have to go watch Roadhouse because it's an amazing movie in the 80s. Watch it. It's fantastic. I was going to tell everyone if they wanted to ask any questions, if you had any questions about betting, put it up on Twitter. Cody and I try and get to it. We'll answer it. I'm always on my phone on Sundays. Everybody else is. So, hey, you got an interesting prop? Throw it out there, man. We're just trying to win some money.
Trying to have fun, trying to win money. The most important thing is since I don't understand the reference, if Tom is making a good connection, a good reference here, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Join us on Sunday morning. We will be going live at 11 a.m. Eastern and going over all the game day stuff, answering your questions, your lineup decisions, and all that. So thank you guys again for joining, and let's build that bankroll, baby.